Our speaker, Aravind, used to be one of the stars of Silicon Valley, has over 36 years of work experience, including 18 great golden years at Cisco in US and India. And several years of experience with companies like Oracle and others. He has, to his credit, 57 patents across several subject areas. He was educated both India and the US, has a bachelor's from Madras University and a master's from the University of Cincinnati on information systems and marketing. Aravind served Cisco from 1996 to 2014, returned to India in 2000, managed all of Cisco's R&D activities in India from 2007 to 2009. He sponsored the Innovation Hub. That was the much talked about thing during those days in Cisco, the Innovation Hub at Cisco to incubate new technologies. He also led Cisco's CSR activities and the projects in India. And the president of the global business group in Cisco known as Inclusive Growth. Aravind is not just a tech wizard. He created Project Samudaya, a volunteer-led program to rehabilitate villages through technology, and built more than 3,000 homes, a hospital, and 2 schools. In 2012, the Karnataka government conferred on Aravind its highest civilization decoration, the Rajotsava Award, to recognize his contribution to social welfare. His interest embraces strategic studies, technology, philosophy, and culture. He has set up the website called What Is in India, whatisinIndia.com. To promote discussion on these and other serious issues. I recommend all the members and Rotarians to have a look at the site. It gives you an idea of a lot of unknowns and knowns of India, from a culture to technology to rituals to you call anything, and constitution, I think, and the foreign policies, quite a lot of information. And Aravind is very passionate about India's development. This evening, Aravind will discuss the theme, Innovate to Make India Great. He says it's possible to make the next Cisco's, Microsoft's, Facebook's, and Google's out of India. I'm also very glad, from Chennai, the heat on innovation has picked up, and we are very proud to have Zoho's, Freshworks, and Kissflow from our own very city. And this grand vision can be, a reality, through innovation and education. I hand over the, session to Aravind to discuss this vision. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me, Rotarians. Good evening, and other family members. I changed the title a little bit compared to what Madhu had put in, but it more or less conveys the same meaning. Let me jump straight into this topic. So the real intention of this presentation is to provide an overview to folks who are listening about what innovation really is. There's a lot of confusion as to what innovation is and how all of us can play a role, and we can't all play a role unless we understand what innovation really means. It means different things to different people. So I'm going to present a point of view from, my point of view. So many predictions and studies world over have basically said in 1820, India had 16% of the world GDP. Actually, if you see earlier, in the last 2000 years, India had the largest GDP in the world for 1500 years. Most people don't know. Most people think, reading their history, that we were a country of very poor people with absolutely no contribution, and the British came and civilized us. That's basically what is taught in schools. And that's not true at all, because we were the most prosperous city, and everybody in the world, everywhere, came and studied in India in many universities. We had 16 major universities, and people studied in all the universities, and they went back. Many of the major countries in the world, including China. China was one of the biggest contributor of students to India at that particular time. By the time we got independence, our portion of the GDP was very small, and in 2005, it was 1.7%. Okay. Now, there are several studies now that are predicting that India would again get to 16% of the world GDP by 2050. Now that's 10x growth, more or less. And if you think about how big this growth is going to be, it cannot be with what we have today. It has to be something different. and one has to do something different. What is it that we need to do? So to understand that, let's go back, step back a little bit and understand the philosophy behind it. So if you see, I've got fulfillment on the x-axis and achievement on the y-axis, and I've broken it out into 4 quadrants. And you see the lack of leadership, meaning there's no achievement, no fulfillment. Then there is selfish leadership, which is high achievement but very low fulfillment. And then there is selfless leadership, which is more fulfillment but less achievement. And then selfless and enlightened leadership. The 4th quadrant is where we need to be. Most of India is in the lack of leadership space. If at all people are successful, they are in the selfish leadership space, barring, I think, defense, some NGOs and people in the religious area. Very, very few people are in the selfless leadership quadrant. So, but what we need to get to is the selfless and enlightened leadership. What are the expectations of students who get out of college? So that's very easy. They want the quality level of a startup company. They want the salary and benefits of MNCs. They want the job security of a PSU or a government job. They want the fulfillment of an NGO. And they want the job mobility of an unorganized sector. Now, obviously, this is not really realistic. Sadly, though, they are encouraged by our teachers in various colleges to expect these kinds of things. In fact, there were in some IITs where I had gone to recruit people, I've had some major run-ins with several senior teachers, faculty members, where they want their kids to start working on the latest and greatest technology with, of course, no particular background or no particular training in those technology areas. And they coach their students to tell them that, hey, you know what, don't join this company or don't join that company because they're not going to give you this kind of work. So it's not a big surprise that many of them from the IITs will join a company and within 2 to 3 months find out that they are not working on the latest and greatest technologies. And they would have already applied to the US, and when they get the admissions, they would dust their hands and off they go. So one thing that we did in CISCO was that we said, okay, we'll give you a job opening, but we will onboard you only after September. That is so if you stick around in India by September, then you can come and join. Otherwise, we know you're going to go abroad. This is a special case for IITs. So this is an expectation issue or a problem that we have in India, and mostly created by teachers. Sadly, what happens is in any job or any reputable company, a technology company, you don't get to work on the latest things immediately. You first start as part of a team and you do the dirtiest jobs first, and then you pick on some extra duties and you're allowed to innovate on whatever that you're doing. And then you get into a place where you start owning whatever that you're doing, but it's going to be methodical after a particular point. Then you start creating scripts and making it interesting for yourself. Then you start partnering with senior employees and doing their grunt work, right? They will farm off their grunt work to you. And then you make that very interesting because you're learning some new stuff and things like that. And then you get into a leadership position where you're going to own certain components that are revenue making, which means that you need to fix a lot of bugs in traditional components and so on, and add features and work on new technologies towards the end. This is how any company will make you go through. There is no shortcuts to it. And this is what happens when students come and join us. They realize that they want to be here, but they are forced to be here, and therefore there is a mismatch that happens, and they leave. So when they go to the US, they do their graduate studies, and then they figure out life with them, that, okay, so what my teachers in India taught me were not the right thing. And they figure out that, and they also mature. They go join a company, and guess where they start? They start all the way down here. By that time, they're matured. They've already burned their bridges. They moved on to the US or Europe, or wherever they go, or Australia, or wherever. And then they basically follow this model. Now, one of the other things that people teach, these bad habits that are taught in India, is that they are taught saying that, hey, look, if you aspire for something, you will automatically get it. And I've never understood this for a very long time till I talked to a young person and said, why do you think that you are going to achieve something because you aspire for it? He said, sir, they show this in movies. And I said, give me an example of a movie. And he talked about this, what is this big blockbuster movie, Bahubali, where this person they show is young, strong, very charismatic chap. They never show that he has any kind of, training. And but he becomes a great hero, he becomes a great fighter, and he's able to fight 100, 200, 300 people seamlessly. So all he did was he aspired, and he wanted to marry he was able to get the woman he wanted. He saved his mother and all these things. So that got me thinking, and then I started paying more attention to what people are saying. And it is true. And when you see some of the leaders that we have, especially in the opposition, these are people who really may not have achieved anything in life, but are automatically promoted because they aspire to do so. So that is not going to work. So in the real world, especially if we want to be an innovative country and somebody wants to innovate, they need to have these three things: is aspiration, capability, and execution. If they don't have any one of these things, they will never ever succeed. They need to aspire, and that dictates really their behavior. They need to develop the capability, being very honest to themselves as to what they miss and what they have and what they don't have. And they need to focus on how do you get this capability set so that you can be good. And third is execution. You have to put in the time. It doesn't matter how great you are, but you find in many companies, and that was a big shock to me when I came to India first, because everybody was all about taking very long lunch breaks, coming to work at 11, 10 or 10:30, but wanting to leave by 5:30 to beat the traffic. Now, that cannot work in a startup environment or in a high-tech environment. You are expected to spend a lot of time working with peers, and I'll go through some other details later on, and to create the right kind of technology, because you're essentially creating something new. You're creating something new that is not taught in colleges, that your professors don't know. In fact, I hosted the entire faculty of Stanford's computer science department in India. And when they came in, we were able to have such deep discussions on so many different areas of technologies. And they had people in Stanford have not seen some of the new things that we are working on. So you can see, where the gap is between where our teachers are, where the teachers in Stanford are, and where the new companies and startups will be. So it's very, very important to actually focus and stay there and doing it. Mostly what happens is aspiration. When you ask any individual or a young person in India, what is their aspiration? Sadly, the examples are not very, inspiring. It's like, oh, I want to be like a Tendulkar, or I want to be like a Shah Rukh Khan or something. It's not, they have very little understanding of the real world, because they are protected really by their families and their colleges, and they don't have a good sense of themselves. And I'm not talking about kids off the street. I'm talking about kids who are in very good colleges in India. That we have very good colleges, but sadly they don't give them this kind of holistic learning and growth area. Second is they cannot or will not be able to deal with a situation where they have to admit that they don't know something, or they have to learn something. Because if you're going to learn something, you have to admit to yourself that you don't know it first. You can't just say that, oh, I know everything, and then it means that you're never going to learn. Because it's the whole environment is like that. If you don't project this image of invincibility to your peers and to your teachers and so on, it's very hard to get recognized in India. And as you know, in India, because of the tyranny of numbers, there are to get attention is and get positive attention especially is not very easy. Third is execution. Most people in India, I think majority of people in India, most people I should say, not majority, but most people in India are hooked on to three drugs. One is cricket, second one is Bollywood, and the third one is TV serials. I was actually quite surprised. I tend to get surprised every time I talk to a young person. Person has graduated from college, has been looking for a job for 6 months. And I ask him, what is it that you have done in the last 6 months while you're searching for a job? Guess what? He's caught in one of these three drugs. I said, why didn't have you looked at any YouTube? Do you look at YouTube? Yeah, I do. What do you watch? Bollywood movies, cricket, serials. Have you watched any technical subjects that you have? I deal with mostly engineers and people in that technical space, and they have not. So, which is the sad part, reality that one needs to understand that if you want this, you're not going to get this. I mean, they are really mutually exclusive. In fact, when we developed new products in Cisco, or when we were developing it when I was there, sometimes I won't come home for 3, 4, 5 days. So if I come home, it's to take a quick shower and then go right back, because my breakfast, lunch, dinner is all ordered at work, and you work with your colleagues. Everybody's working so hard, and they're all, because you're working towards a goal and you're all pushing together as a goal. And one needs to have that kind of a mission focus if you're going to succeed. So this ACE is a very important model. In fact, this is one of the things I used to teach in Cisco to the top 5% of Cisco. They would ask me to say, okay, how did you create all these things, and teach them the process and show them why the behavior. And I used to teach worldwide students, the top 5 talent in Cisco, but more and more in the last 3-4 years, I was in Cisco to Cisco India. And most of them, even in Cisco India, top talent would always be surprised at how much they need to grow, for them to be successful and understand that, oh my God, I have to really pull my weight and move on. Now, people think innovation is about doing something great. Well, it is, but that it is not like magic. It's almost like people say, oh, you can get moksha, right? So it's only when you actually understand what it means to get moksha. It's very, very complex process, and it's a huge number of steps that one needs to go through. Similarly, there are 3 stages. One is discovery, which is you got to figure out a new way of doing things. Second is invention. That is, you can demonstrate that, okay, so I found something new and I can demonstrate it. That is really invention. And innovation is about making it pervasive and taking it to market and doing it. And that's by no means easy, because especially if you're an engineer and you know only engineering, to take it to market and all that is a completely different beast. And you need a lot more things to do that, to get there.
Hi, do you want to know how leaders who were born, bred in India have made it finally globally on that stage? Do you want to learn the secrets that might have helped Sundar Pichai or Satya Nadella really get up right there to becoming global heads of organizations? If you want to learn all that, then you better learn from global leaders. We have Sanjay Tandon coming in from Silicon Valley. We have Kalyani, who's been the Chief Accounting Officer for Sun Microsystems. We have Sri Krishnan, who's the CEO here in Karnataka Bank. We have Ram Kumar, who's been here as the head of FIS for India and Philippines. We have so many leaders right here who will share their stories, give you tips. So you need to sign up quickly for May 3rd and May 4th, which is the Global CXO Accelerator Summit. And it's happening right here in Bengaluru. So wherever you are, whichever city, book your tickets and see you here, because we're going to have a 7-day event, 5 days online and 2 days live. And when you book your 2-day pass, you could win gifts up to 89,000. So click on the link below and I'll see you there.
Okay. So what do you need? So for discovery, you need exposure. Most people, I don't know how many of you have gone to any university in India and had them walk you through. So a couple of things they actually show you is, and I've done a lot of this, I've seen so many universities across India, And what they will do is they'll go and show you your library, their library. Huge room, a lot of books, hell of a lot of books, lot of tables. But almost in every university, in the last 20 years, I've been going to various universities, there would be nobody there except the librarian. No book would be out of the stacks and on the table. If you take a book from the stacks, it would be brand new. If you actually run your hand on top of the books, it'll be filled with dirt and dust. What does it tell you? They are basically fulfilling a requirement of the government to buy these books and keep there. So you go to then they'll take you to a lab. Lab, what happens? Lots of tables, lots of equipment, all of them in pristine condition. There's not a single thing that is broken or out of place, and they're all in great condition. Again, what does it tell you? Either the kids are extremely careful or they've never been used. So this is what happens. So nobody uses them. So you cannot teach innovation. You cannot teach something new to people if you don't allow them to discover. You need to allow them to play. And that is not going to happen. Second is, most of the teachers in schools, in colleges, have not seen anything outside their college. That's a sad reality. There is one example of somebody who did an internship with me, said we had a test, and the guy the professor who made up the test had to go do something urgent. So he had his assistant professor come and be the provost. Now, as he was the invigilator, so these kids are working on something, and they found that one question, there was a big problem. It didn't come right. So they went to this guy and said, it doesn't look like this question is right. He looked at it and he said, what is this? I can solve it in 1 minute. What are you doing? You guys don't know what you're doing. So they were all like, scratching their head and saying, no, there's something wrong. He said, no, you guys don't know. You're just lazy. And this went on for a while. And then when the other professor, really the real professor, came in, they showed him that paper and said, this question seems to be wrong. He looked at it and said, oh my God, I forgot to add all these things. I'm sorry, ignore that question. Now, what does that tell you? This assistant professor didn't really understand what he was reading, didn't really understand what is going on. And there are many examples like that I've seen with myself on what it is. They don't have an exposure outside their thing. And that's where the customer exposure is completely not there. But they need to be able to go to companies. So I used to organize this company walkthroughs for student walkthroughs in CISCO labs, where we would actually take them to a lab and we told them how the routers are there. If you go to a CISCO lab, you would just, some people just faint because there are so many wires and so many boxes all there, and they're all connected. And it's kind of a crazy, it's like almost that Hurricane madman has gone in there and done some magic over there. So we used to take them there. We would show them different technologies that we are working on, how that works, and so on and so forth. We need to have more companies do that and have more students go and see that. Otherwise, they are never going to understand what is there outside their class. Second is invention. For invention, you need experience. Experience means you need to fly something and do something. Say, for example, you have a drone. In fact, I won't name the university, but there was one IIT that called and told me that they have invented a drone. So I asked them what it is, and then they gave me a bunch of details. And I asked them, did you assemble a drone or did you build a drone? There was a dead silence on the other side. They had assembled a drone. They had not made a drone. So anybody can buy a drone kit, put together a drone and fly it and say that I have done. But what the newspapers published were that this was a drone invented in this particular idea. I mean, so this is not right. So experience, one has to experience. Of course, buying a drone kit, putting together a drone, flying it is great, but it's a hobby. It's not invention. What you invent is, okay, how do you make the drone dance? How do you make it turn this way, that way? and go outside the sphere of what it is. That's a little bit of invention. And of course, innovation is much, much more. You need to understand business. You need to be able to talk finance. You need to talk about operations and how to release mechanisms and so on and so forth. And it's a much larger thing. So I don't want to sound like I'm being very negative on India, but I will talk also the positives of what we've achieved. Okay. But these are the realities of what you have in India today. And you need, unless you understand the realities, you don't know what your capabilities are and what you need to learn. People also think innovation is just one thing. It is not. Actually, innovation, there are several kinds of innovation. There is the copycat localization model, which is like the Chinese model, right? You take something and they will produce what we call in Tamil as Iyarchang copy, right? So they'll make an exact copy and give it to you, and for a much lower price. That is copycat localization. And they've made a lot of money with it. It's not a bad thing, but they made a lot of money with it. Then there is a service-oriented localization, which is the Indian model. And guess what? This is not, people think that this was invented by Narayana Murthy. It was not. About 200 years ago, the Brits wanted indentured laborers to go to Fiji and South Africa and all that. And they basically got the zamindars to provide them labor. And they provided them labor. They were paid much more than they would get here. They were taken there, but they were given horrible conditions to live in. They worked very hard, and many of them decided to stay back and said that, I don't have much going on back here, so I would decide to stay back here. So that's exactly what many service companies do here. I'm sorry if some person working in a service company is here. I'm sorry, I don't mean to hurt your feelings, but majority of the work is there. They do some interesting work. When we had 20,000 contract laborers, as we called them, in CISCO working for me, and I used to go to all these companies, and one of the things I used to encourage them to do is actually invent and then innovate and put some features in it, and gave them rewards, financial rewards, recognition, and so on and so forth. But most of them are very happy to get a job and to retire. So this is a danger that we are in. The third is the reverse engineering improvement, which is Japanese model. You give them anything, they would not only produce a copy of it, they will produce a better copy of it. And it'll be cheaper, and it'll have a lot more features on it. And they will basically come after your market and take the market away from you. This is the Japanese version of innovation. Then the next two, that's a disruptive and new market, are basically Western models. They basically come, look at what you're using, disrupt your way of life or what your patterns are, and sell you a product that they made, and they sell it saying that it's much better to you. 100 years ago, everybody was using that sambal on the teeth, and they were using neem sticks to clean their teeth. And if I remember, my great grandmother, she had phenomenal teeth, and she was close to 90 years old.
Waiting 8:30.
And then now they have and now they have they brought brush basically.
Excuse me, sir. I would request. Hello, can we be muted? Jyoti, can you mute everyone?
Yes, he has been muted.
Yeah, thank you.
So then that is a disruptive. That's a disruptive exercise. One of the disruptive exercises, we all had these old POTS phones at home. If you know the ring dial, that you go around and around. Then I was part of the team that created this voice on IP, where we created a completely new set of technologies that killed $100 billion market. This is in 98, 99. We killed $100 billion market, and we created this voice on IP, which is very prevalent today. You can, all of you would be using on the phone, Skype or whatever it is that you discussed, right? So that's how that was a disruptive example. New market, cell phones. Most of us didn't have cell phones even 10 years ago. When I came to India in 2000, I had a cell phone in the US, of course, and I've got a cell phone here, but not many people had cell phones. Today, you can't find, almost there's nobody today without a cell phone. Everybody has a cell phone. That is a new market. Worse, there is these new smartphones today. More and more people are getting these smartphones where they can do all kinds of important things. Sadly, most of them wasting their time doing that. That is a new market. You didn't need it, Somebody brought it, you found it convenient, and they're using it. Finally, the thing is transformational market. There's no model like that today, but I'm trying to see if we can create such a model in India that would transform people's lives, transform the nation, and would be innovative, and we can then go and sell it everywhere else in the world. That is something that we have to work on. So here are some examples. Here are some examples of the first level, which is the copycat model. Then there is the service model. Then there is the reverse engineering model. And if you see, Sony is there, and so is Huawei. So Huawei is made a big market for itself with the reverse engineering. Sadly, you can't take the Chinese out of the Chinese company, right? So they've copied all our products to such a point that even if you typed in the CLI, the command line interface thing, some of the spelling mistakes that we had showed up in their documentation as well as the product. So, but they made a good market for that. And then you had the disruptive technologies, and then you have the new market things. But there, like I said, there are no transformation models yet out. Okay, so now how do you get there? So this is about what we are and where we are located right now, and how do we move forward. And towards the end, I'll tell you why it's all important for all of you. But just please stay on and keep engaged. So what is the road? What is the road to wisdom, and how do you get there? One is you need to understand that what wisdom is not something that just dawns on you. I mean, some rishis get it because of their tapas or whatever. But for most people, it is a process. So you need to understand there is data that forms information, that makes knowledge, and that becomes wisdom. And this is a four-step process that one has to go through. Sadly, the Indian education system focuses only on data gathering. So that's what we say, right? That people mug a lot of data and they memorize a lot of data without really understanding what it means and how to understand something. And that can come only with experience. So you may learn a protocol very well. Unless you go sit before a router and configure a particular protocol, you're not going to understand it. And then that becomes a knowledge that you can incorporate by working with somebody senior and learn that. And then finally, you become very wise about how to use that particular form of technology. And there's an iterative process for everything that one would have to go through. The learning process also, people think you just learn. No, you don't. There are 3 steps to learning. One is the accrual. Second is absorption. Third is assimilation. Now, people think accrual means, and that's what we do in Indian education system, we just accrue lots and lots of data, and we never absorb, we never assimilate. But there are 4 parts to accrual also. There is the instruction, there is self-learning, there is experience, and there is peer learning. These are 4 things that is very, very important. And in most colleges and university systems in India, we assume that instruction is the only way of teaching people, which is not true, because you're missing out on the other 3. In fact, I was on the board of one big university, I won't name what, and this used to be a very big point of debate that we had, where I said, look, unless this person, no point you teaching them all the protocols and all these things in college, unless they actually see a router and touch a router, they are going to be useless to me. So I changed their curriculum where the student would spend 6 months at CISCO as an intern, and they would be getting a huge pay packet, and they'll be working with all the engineers and learning about these technologies. At the end of it, their contribution will be very marginal, but they would be so much wiser. And invariably, these are the kids that we will hire. So after they finish their graduation, they would all be hired into CISCO. They will come and work for the department where they worked on, and they would be extremely good contributors. In fact, I can tell you that many people in my organization that I had picked up from 2000 onwards, they all own about 3 or 4 houses in Bangalore. So you know what the cost of a house in Bangalore is very, very expensive. And they own 3-4 houses in Bangalore, and they are very comfortable with what they do, and they've also learned the right thing. So these 4 are actually very, very, very important in terms of learning and accruing data. And absorption is reflection on what you've learned and trying to see how do you apply. In many places where, I've been the invigilator for PhD theses and so on, one thing that always struck me is, and no matter which college that you go to, their bibliography is mostly textbooks. They have never looked at a research paper. They've never looked at a standard, a actual standard. This is a very big challenge. So when you ask them, they said, they didn't even know that something like that existed. So you can imagine where we are, right? So why are we where we are? This is very important. I think that I've zeroed it down to two things. One is there is an immense fear of failure. And this is built from a very, very young age. Just think back yourself and your kids, your grandkids. When they come back from school, marks, they'll say they've scored 98 in math. The first question that is asked is, what happened to the 2%? That is the first question that is asked. You're not applauded, you're not appreciated for the 98% that you scored, but you are essentially questioned as to why you missed that 2%. So this fear of failure or being questioned and being thing is very, very high. Second is, if you ask a question to a professor and the professor cannot answer you or give you a proper answer, you get beaten. I mean, at least it happened to me in my school. You ask a question that, and so much so it became almost a sadistic game with me. I used to tease the teacher and give impossible things to solve. And the teacher would have spent 30 minutes on it and would have made to look like a fool. And he would get so angry with me and he'd come and beat me. But then, the job is done. So it gets to that point where the fear of failure, if you fail, you are nobody. In fact, if you know, a lot of kids who commit suicide in IITs are kids who got in with a reservation. These are very smart kids in areas that they are in, but they are thrown into an environment where they are expected to perform so much bigger. They have now become, they used to be a big fish in a big, small pond. Now they are small fish in a big pond and they don't know how to survive, and nobody taught them how to survive those kinds of things. But, and also the way we look at them is, we look at every kid as a monkey. We grade the kid on how well it can climb trees. We grade it on how fast it can swing from one branch to the other. But then not everyone is a monkey. Some are a fish, some is an elephant, and other things. And we don't treat them that way. We treat everybody the same, and we expect them to perform very well. And if they're not, they are failure. And that has to change. There was one recent example. Some kid had come home, and I asked her what she wanted to do. She said, I said, what are you planning to do? She said, I'm going to do BCom. I said, what do you want to do in your life? And she said, oh, I love baking. And that's really what I want to do. I said, then what's stopping you from following that? Kid comes from a reasonably wealthy background and wealthy family, but her parents just don't want her to focus on something other than a steady, quote unquote, a steady job, and focus on that. So I told her, look, this is your passion, and you seems to, and she talked about it. And when she talked about bakery, she was like, in so much of happiness. So I said, why don't you study bakery? And then once you finish, you let me know. I can even fund you if you want to create a startup to make baked goods and sell it, especially if it is non-vegetarian and without eggs. There is a huge market world over for it. And why don't you do that? And guess what? So I'm very happy that she abandoned her idea to do BCom, and she's gotten into confectionery learning. Okay, and she's trying to do exactly that. So we need to get kids to be away from this failure, saying that's okay. There's no consequence if you fail. And then the second thing that people do is indecision. And the reason why there is indecision is because there's nobody to guide them. Many of these kids who are passing IITs and all that, their parents have not really studied much, and this is the first graduate, and there's nobody to really give them a direction as to which way to go, and which is the other sad part. And we need to address those kinds of issues.
Hi, have you heard of the Global CXO Accelerator Summit that's happening right here in Bangalore on May 3rd and May 4th? What? You haven't? It's a 7-day summit, 5 days of learning online, 2 days of learning live from the world's best. We have leaders coming in from Silicon Valley, Sanjay Tandon, who's been the Global Director of Applied Materials Corporation, Kalyani, who's been the Chief Accounting Officer for Sun Microsystems. We have Sri Krishnan, who's the CEO here of Karnataka Bank and, earlier with Yes Bank. We have Ram Kumar, who's an EVP and who's been here with FIS, and he heads the India and Philippines operations. We have Pradipto. We have Aravind Sitaraman, who's been the president of CISCO earlier. Come and learn from the world's best, because they will tell you about the mistakes you made. They will tell you about what helped them succeed. Learn from leaders who've done it. Stop wasting your time, aimlessly wandering around social media. From WhatsApp University, learn from the world's best. So click on the link below. It's May 3rd and 4th. See you there. Book your early bird tickets. And when you book a 2-day pass, you could win benefits up to 89,000. See you in Bangalore.
So now the reason why I'll reveal why I revealed so many things to you. So you as a parent, you as a grandparent or a mentor, and you in decision-making bodies, some of you running companies and running large departments and so on and so forth, you need to understand what that kid is going through. And you need to be a mentor to these people. And you need to show them that it's okay to fail, and you need to give them the opportunity to fail. Unless they fail in safe environments, they are not going to be successful in the real environment. When they go to the Mahabharata war, they need to be good soldiers. Otherwise, you can't get to Mahabharata on Kurukshetra and expect to fight a war and you're not prepared for it, right? So you need to be ready to train them and coach them to be able to do that and influence on everybody around it. So what can the government do? Government of India do? 3 things I would say. One is participate, incubate, and incorporate. And again, as citizens of India, this is something you should keep telling your elected representative or anybody that you come across. And I'm sure all of you come across politicians and bureaucrats, and you need to tell them all these problems. Tell these things and ask them to focus on these kinds of things. So what does participate? Participate means this is in 2002 or 3, I think, I was part of a committee that was selected to propose to the government at that time how to innovate. So I said, well, one of the things that we went there and told them is start creating institutional investments. Start making investments in startup companies, encourage them to do it. And they basically said, oh, how do we do this and all that? And one of the things that we said was create innovation centers in almost every university. You know what they did? They much later, they create this, what's called this Atal Innovation Center or something like that. It was essentially created by this bureaucrat. They took the idea, they created this bureaucracy around it. And they said, if you had so much square feet, and if you can demonstrate that this square feet is going to be used for innovation, we will give you this grant. Indians being so smart, and especially Indian universities being so smart, what did? They created that space and they said that we will use this for innovation, and they got the grant money from the government. Okay, but net result, what is the innovation? Not much, not many research and so on and so forth. We had suggested several things, but the government basically decided that this is the way they want to go. But I'm saying create an expert committee of industry heavyweights, people who have done that. Imagine that you have a committee of, say, Mukesh Ambani and Adani and Mahindra or Venu or Malika or somebody, right? Come together and they identify areas where the country needs to invest. And these are strategically important areas that we need to invest. And they would also say where they're going to be used in the society and how far it can grow. And then they identify startups where they can invest. Imagine a startup that's working in, say, cloud computing or something like that, and they are doing reasonable business, and the government of India takes a big position in it and places somebody like, say, Mukesh Ambani on the board of that on that company startup. Imagine how much that small company is going to gain from that. Mukesh Ambani himself will buy so much of cloud equipment from that company, right? So that's the way we need to think. And the second thing that they need to do is exit out Chinese investments. There are lots of startups in India, unicorns as they're called, good startups, where the Chinese have taken substantial stakes. We need to exit those positions. Government of India can absorb those things. They need to really treat these companies as the modern day PSUs. 40, 50 years ago, they created so many PSUs. Why? They wanted to create jobs. That's not the focus here. Here, they need to create value. They need to create technical value. And if they create them as a modern day PSU, but no government restrictions, no Babu should be on the board, no politician should go there asking for a job for his brother's son or something like that. Keep an arm's length relationship is a bet the country is going to make. And then at the time when it exits and it gets big, the country can disinvest and they make a lot of money from it. In fact, people who had invested in Google, $1 million in late 90s in Google, exited Google in 2004 with over $1 billion. Okay, so you can imagine how much you can really make in terms of what if you back the right horse. Okay, incubate. What is it that needs to be? We talked about the incubation centers. It's definitely not the way it is being done here. You should not create incubation centers in the way it's done here. It should not be based on square feet. It may be great for a Babu to manage and to provide data to the parliament and tell them how to manage it. But I think I like this Mr. Piyush Goyal's plan of PLIs. So you should make them PLI based. So you want to innovate? Innovate. I will give you the number of research papers that you've committed. I'll give you money. Number of patents that you've filed, international patents and Indian patents, you get certain monies for that. New products that you've created, you'll get new money. So this PLI, or a performance linked incentive plan, is the right way to go forward. You need to also create a mentor network. Many of you are great, would be great mentors to sit with somebody and walk a young kid who's trying to come up with an idea, but cannot refine it, cannot actually articulate it. Help that person articulate it. Then you need to link them to people in the industry who can help them build a proof of concept. Building a proof of concept is not very expensive, and it should be done on software, and most kids have computers and they can easily do it. So they should be able to build a proof of concept. And then you set aside a seed fund and you pick the top 100 such ideas coming from the thing. You have like in the standards bodies, you have layers and layers of technical people who are evaluating ideas that are coming through, who narrow down the top 100 ideas, and you give the top 100 ideas $1 million each. $100 million for India is not a lot of money. And of course, they're going to get the seed fund with a stake in the company. And if this company really kicks off, maybe 10 of them will kick off and do very well. And that will be a much bigger win for the government of India.
When are you going to stop procrastinating and taking action? When are you going to learn what it takes to get that 1 CR salary plus and a great lifestyle and a great future for your children and your dreams of becoming a global CXO, a CTO, a CIO, a CISO, whatever you want to be? Stop procrastinating and sign up quickly for this Global CXO Accelerator Summit. It's the first time in India, and it's the only event like this in India. You won't find it. So click on the link below. We have leaders like Sanjay Tandon, who's coming in from Silicon Valley. We have Kalyani, who's been a Chief Accounting Officer for Sun Microsystems and Intap. We have Aravind, who's been the President of CISCO, who's got a number of patents to his name. We have Sri Krishnan, who's the CEO. And he's got here to share his story with you. We've got Ram Kumar, who's the EVP for FIS for India and Philippines. All these people are here to share their stories to help you. So stop procrastinating and sign up. Stop sitting on the fence. Change your life. Take charge. I want to see you here on May 3rd and 4th. And when you buy a 2-day pass, you could win, benefits up to 89,000. So click below, click quickly.
For this, the angel and venture capital network, many people in India think that venture capital companies are only about giving money. No, venture capital companies open a lot of doors for you. They open customers, they bring you to customers, they bring you to partners that you can work with. They introduce you to larger companies who may use your product in what they are doing. So we need to build that kind of a resource and knowledge base where you introduce these young kids out of some remote village or some small town family or a small medium class family, and then you teach them how to scale and grow. Okay, so these are things that one needs to do. What do you do with incorporate? The government first starts to use it. For example, the huge brouhaha over Twitter that happened, right? Now, our prime minister has maybe has the largest following of Twitter in the world. Imagine if he said, I'm going to open an account in with Coup, and all of you, please join Coup. Coup is not fully ready. It's going to have a lot of problems. It has a lot of problems. I agree. But imagine if 1 year later he says, I'm going to quit Twitter. I'm going to move to Coup. Imagine the impact that it would have not only on the company, but on the rest of the entrepreneurs they would go, right? So what's happening in India today is good startup companies are being acquired by foreign MNCs, big tech giants. They are taking huge stakes in Indian startup companies. For example, Jio, there were so many companies that came and took positions in Jio, which is a terrible thing, actually, from a national strategic perspective. It's great for Jio as a company and for Mukesh Ambani, but it's a terrible thing for a company because here is a platform that can essentially be the largest platform in the world. And they're also developing some hardware and all that. And this could be the next big thing. Now, you've already diluted 25% of your company to foreign companies. Now, these are things that, if the government of India was smart, it should have said, no, don't do all that. I will take 25% from you. I will invest in it. I won't come and sit on the board. I will invest, and I will probably have some technocrat in CLRI or somebody sit there, or the technical advisor, principal technical advisor, or sit on the board. But other than that, I don't want anything else. I'm going to invest. So that is how we need to think about these start companies. Second is we need to make them as preferred vendors. For example, Jio, they are developing 5G platforms. Okay. So while there will be a conflict of interest vis-a-vis Airtel and others, but imagine that they become a preferred vendor for BSNL. Okay, now you are incubating. This is how China grew. China did all these things. This is not new, right? Those of you who studied China will understand that. We need to make their products popular. Buy services from them, buy their products and use them within the government, and automatically the products will become better. And the final thing is deny overseas competitors access to government products. When you have an investment in a government company and they are your buy, okay, that they're going to be a preferred vendor, the foreign competitors should not have access. I know that this is a very sensitive topic and people will say about WTO and all that. Most countries in the world do not follow any WTO rules or regulations. India is the only country that looks into this, their own perverse notion of dharma, and we follow WTO rules to the letter. So we need to be careful about not trying to bring somebody in and they will come in with that huge amount. Imagine somebody like Facebook comes in and then gets a government contract. Guess what? They will kick anybody out. There is an Indian company that is equivalent to Facebook. They will come and kick that company out because they have over $1 trillion in worth market cap. They can very easily come and tsunami you out of the market. Okay, so with that, I will stop here, and I want you guys to think about what I said from those perspectives I said as a parent, as a grandparent, as a mentor, as an employer, as an influence maker, as a senior contributor to the society and intellectual in the society. How can you influence that kid? How can you influence the kid's fathers, parents? How can you influence your politician, your bureaucrat that you meet? And how can you change this whole philosophy of how we look at technology and innovation in this country?